Moonless clouds draped the night above King's Landing, the streets glistening with a late summer drizzle that smelled of iron and smoke. Within the Red Keep, the stench of damp stone and tallow mingled in the torchlit passages that wound toward Maegor's holdfast. Cersei Lannister walked them alone save for the soft rustle of her velvet gown and the steady footfalls of Ser Gregor Clegane behind her. The mountain's armor creaked, a slow metallic groan that seemed to echo her own anticipation. Each step felt heavier than the last, as though the very castle pressed down, wary of what she carried beneath her cloak. A thin bundle of parchment, sealed with wax long since cracked. She paused outside the chamber where Qyburn waited. Candles sputtered on the trestle table inside. The alchemist's spectacles gleamed as he bent over a half-dissected raven, its glossy feathers splayed like a dark fan. At Cersei's entrance he straightened, wiping red-brown fluid from his fingers with a scrap of linen. "Your Grace," he murmured, bowing. "Leave us," Cersei told Ser Gregor. The hulking knight inclined his helm and withdrew. The door boomed shut. Qyburn's eyes flicked to the bundle in her hands. "You are certain, then?" Cersei unwrapped the parchment, smoothing it with deliberate care. The ink had faded to a muddy brown, yet the script remained clear. The sealed record of a marriage, performed by High Septon Maynard, between Prince Rhaegar Targaryen of Dragonstone and Lady Lyanna Stark of Winterfell. There were signatures, seals, and, most damning, a postscript by Maynard himself, noting that any offspring would be of unquestioned legitimacy. "I am more than certain," Cersei replied. Her voice felt like a dagger's whisper. "When I reveal this, Jon Snow ceases to be a bastard of Winterfell. He becomes a dragon, a trueborn son of Rhaegar and the rightful heir." Qyburn tilted his head. "A revelation that will roil half the realm, sow doubt among your enemies, and turn allies to ash. Splendid chaos." Cersei traced one crimson-lacquered fingernail along the parchment's edge. A year earlier she had crushed her enemies with wildfire beneath the September of Baelor. But fire, she knew, was as fleeting as smoke. Secrets, when flung into the open, could linger like poison in the bloodlines of men. "Send copies tonight. Every castle from Dorne to the Wall will wake to the truth. My truth before dawn." "As you wish." Qyburn's smile was thin as a razor's edge. He offered her a fresh raven quill, black and gleaming. "A signature in your own hand will lend authority." She signed without hesitation, crimson wax sealing each copy. The mountain returned, stoic as stone, to guard Qyburn's apprentices while they worked the copyists through the night. Cersei lingered only long enough to watch the first raven launched from the rookery, its wings pumping against the rain. Then she returned to her solar, her heart thrumming with fierce delight. By the first blush of orange over Blackwater Bay, flocks of ravens fanned out across the sky, dark seeds of discord born north, south, and every point between. In Winterfell, the air carried the tang of turned earth and wet pine. Jon Snow rose before first light, as was his habit, to train in the yard beneath the pale lanterns. The castle felt half asleep. Stable boys yawning, grooms lugging feed, Sansa's direwolf pin banners stirring in the dawn wind. Ghost padded silently at Jon's side, crimson eyes gleaming. Mid-thrust, Jon paused. A raven's hoarse cry echoed from the battlements. Maester Wolkan hurried across the bailey, one hand clamped over his cowl against the drizzle, a roll of parchment clutched in the other. "My lord." Wolkan adjusted his spectacles, breath misting. A sealed message, marked urgent by the queen in the south. Sansa appeared on the steps, auburn hair coiled beneath a fur-lined hood. Her face was taut with the calm she wore like armor. "Bring it to the Great Hall," she said. They gathered at the high table before the fire. Jon, Sansa, Arya leaning against a stone pillar, Bran in his wheeled chair beside her. The hall smelled of smoke, fresh bread, and the faint musk of damp pelts. Jon broke the seal. He read the words once, twice, feeling them carve hollows in his chest. When he could speak no more, he passed the parchment to Sansa. Silence thickened, broken only by the hiss of a log collapsing in the hearth. Sansa's gloved fingers trembled. "It claims you are Aegon Targaryen." that Lyanna and Rhaegar were wed in secret, their union blessed by the High Septon. Her blue eyes flicked up, searching Jon's face. "It says you are heir to the Iron Throne." Arya scoffed, but her voice held no mirth. "Cersei's lies are a weapon. She wants us tearing ourselves apart." "Perhaps," Bran murmured, gaze distant as though he watched stars none could see. Yet few lies wield documents and seals 4 decades old. Jon's thoughts tumbled. Ned's solemn eyes, the old words of honor unspoken, the crypt of Winterfell and Lyanna's stone effigy. He felt the press of 1,000 questions, each heavier than the last. Ghost nudged his knee, sensing turmoil. "We will confirm nothing until we know," Jon said. He forced his voice steady. "Send riders to the Citadel. Ravens to Howland Reed at Greywater Watch. He was with my father at the Tower of Joy." "And Daenerys?" Sansa asked. Jon hesitated. "She deserves to hear from us, not Cersei." Outside, the wind rose, rattling shutters as though the old gods themselves whispered through the weirwood leaves. 100 leagues south, on Dragonstone's storm-lashed cliffs, Daenerys Targaryen stood atop the charred rampart where Drogon perched, wings mantled against the gale. Tyrion Lannister approached, cloak snapping behind him, a letter clutched in his hand. His mismatched eyes held a wary glint. "My queen," he shouted over the wind. "From King's Landing. My sister has made an announcement." He handed her the parchment. Daenerys read swiftly, silver gold hair whipping about her face. Heat radiated from Drogon's scaled flank. The dragon lifted his head, as though sensing his rider's agitation. Tyrion watched her expression shift from puzzlement to anger, then to something softer. An ache, perhaps, that he had never seen in her before. "She calls him Aegon Targaryen," Daenerys said softly. "Rightful heir." She glanced toward the horizon. "But I am the last dragon." Tyrion rubbed his scarred brow. "Cersei delights in traps within traps. This could be another. Or the truth," Daenerys whispered. They stood in silence, waves roaring below. Somewhere far off, another raven winged northward. The realm stirred like a beast roused by fire. In the Reach, Lord Tarly's distant kin debated bloodlines in candlelit halls. In the Vale, Lady Royce measured lineage against loyalty and found both wanting. At Old Town, the conclave convened past midnight, maesters poring over dusty vaults for corroboration. Everywhere small folk gathered in inns and septs, whispering of the Silver Wolf, some half Targaryen, half Stark prince who might tame dragons and direwolves alike. Yet the queen on the Iron Throne was relentless. Cersei hosted lords in the throne room, her black gown shimmering as though woven with starlight. The Iron Throne's barbs framed her like a sea of swords. "The North hides a usurper," she proclaimed, voice ringing among marble pillars. "A dragon spawn who would steal your lands and levy your sons for his wars. I reveal his blood so you may know your enemy." Some lords bent the knee that day, seduced or frightened by her certainty. Others asked for proof, and proof she supplied. Copies of Maynard's record, statements from spies who had shadowed Ned Stark after the Trident, even a weather-stained page from the White Book of the Kingsguard noting Sir Arthur Dayne's presence at a birthing chamber in Dorne. Whether forged or genuine, the evidence spread like blight. Deep within the Red Keep's black cells, Jaime Lannister paced his narrow confines. Shackled by the sister he once loved, he listened as rumors drifted down through stone and straw. Each whisper cut like a blade, carving away the life he thought he knew. He pictured a boy of the Night's Watch, dark curls, steady eyes. Ned Stark's bastard, they had called him. Yet if the parchment was true, they were kin, both bound by the legacy of kings. In the dim cell, Jaime swore beneath his breath. Cersei's war was no longer for crowns alone, but for the very bones of history. Autumn crept across the north, gilding the last leaves of oak and elm. Ravens came and went in flurries, carrying questions, denials, pleas. Fires burned late in Winterfell's library tower, where Samwell Tarly and Maester Wolkan compared ink, vellum, and signatures. Sam deciphered Maynard's cramped hand, noting the unique loop of the letter G. The the tremor of a Septon's arthritic flourish. He had once read these secrets in the halls of the citadel. Seeing them now in the north felt like fate tightening its weave. Bran Stark watched them from his chair, eyes pale as moonlit ice. "It is as it was," he said quietly. "Rhaegar loved Lyanna. They wed in secret beneath the canopy of the winter roses. Their child was carried to Winterfell to be kept safe, his name hidden in silence. Jon stood nearby, cloak unfastened despite the chill. And if the realm accepts this, what then of the North's freedom? What of the war against the dead?" Arya's voice rang from the shadows. "If Cersei forces our brother to choose between crown and family, she wins. We must decide what we are before others decide for us." Sansa nodded. "The lords gather in 2 days. House Umber, Karstark, Mormont. They will want answers." Jon exhaled a plume of white. "Then we give them the truth and see who remains." Night fell thick and starless over the Kingsroad. Torches bobbed as a lone rider spurred southward, a dusty courier from House Reed, breath frosting in the cold. At his belt swung a scroll bearing Ned Stark's broken sigil. Within its wax lay Howland Reed's sworn testimony, that he had stood with Eddard Stark at the Tower of Joy, that he had heard Lyanna's last words, had seen the babe crying in a bed soaked with blood and blue winter roses. The rider changed mounts at Moat Cailin, mind fixed on Winterfell. Behind him the wind howled over the neck as though urging him faster. In the stepstones, ships of the Golden Company creaked at harbor. Their commander, Harry Strickland, read Cersei's proclamation over breakfast figs, brow furrowing under salt-grayed hair. He had promised swords and elephants for the queen, yet here was news of another Targaryen, a rightful dragon bound to the north. Some Sel's words sharpened blades with renewed zeal at the prospect of a larger war. Others muttered of broken vows and the curse that haunted any who betrayed the Blackfire line. Daenerys paced the map room of Dragonstone, fingers tracing worn basalt ridges that marked mountains and rivers. Varys stood near the hearth, ink stains on his sleeves. "Jon has not written," she said. "He may not know what to say," replied the spider. "A man raised as another will question every step once the mask falls." Grey Worm entered, helm under his arm. A raven circles. It bears the Stark sigil. Daenerys tore the ribbon, scanning the neat Stark script. Jon's words were simple. A promise to speak in person, a request for patience, an oath that their war against the dead remained unchanged. Yet each sentence felt weighted with unspoken shards. Tyrion poured himself wine. He would come south if he could, but winter roads grow perilous. Perhaps we meet him halfway. Perhaps, Daenerys murmured. Her gaze drifted to the horizon, where a faint slash of dragonfire lit the clouds, for Drogon flew restless in the dark. Or perhaps I fly north and hear truth from his own lips. At Castle Black, the Night's Watch had dwindled to a shadow of its former strength. Dolorous Ed received Cersei's raven while wading through fresh snowfall atop the wall. He shook his head at the words, muttering about southern games. "As if it matters who sits what chair when dead men march," he told Tormund Giantsbane. The wildling laughed, a crackling sound like a pine log splitting. Yet even he seemed uneasy, for talk of dragons and kings stirred old memories, and the wind beyond the wall carried no birdsong. 10 days after Cersei's revelation, lords of the north gathered in Winterfell's Godswood, the heart tree's red leaves drifting like blood-tinted snow. Lanterns burned low, casting flickers on solemn faces. Jon wore plain black, a wolf's head clasp at his throat. Sansa stood at his right, Arya at his left, Bran in shadow. Around them, Lyanna Mormont, fierce as ever, Lord Glover, stern, Meege Mormont's cousins, even Lady Barbary Dustin, hawk-eyed beneath her hood. Jon spoke first. "You know me as Ned Stark's bastard son. You followed me beyond the wall. You bled beside me against Ramsay Bolton. You named me king in the north." He paused, breath visible in the chill. "I have learned my birth is not what I believed. My mother was Lyanna Stark. My father, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. Their marriage was lawful, their love true. A murmur rippled through the assembly, a sound of shifting ice. "If this claim is true," Lord Glover said, "then you are not a Snow at all." "No," Jon answered, "yet I am still of the North. Half of my blood, half of my heart, belongs to every stone of this castle." Lyanna Mormont's small voice rang out. "You led us when we had no hope, saved my people from the dead. I care not about dragon blood, only the man who stands before me." Others hesitated, weighing pride, fear, and newfound possibilities. Bran's wheelchair creaked as he rolled forward. "Truth is neither shield nor spear, yet it can cut deeper than Valyrian steel," he said quietly. "We have spoken of honor for generations. Honor demands we face the truth, then choose." Night lingered long after the meeting ended, silent save for the soft hush of falling snow. Jon stood beneath the heart tree, red leaves brushing his hair like a mother's hand. He remembered a wolf's howl on a Craster's Keep night, the warmth of Ygritte's breath in a cave, the taste of cold ale in the shield hall on Dragonstone. All of it fragments of a life now bent by revelation. Ghost sat beside him, a white shadow in deeper whiteness. Jon stroked the direwolf's fur, eyes reflecting the godswood's flicker. "What am I now?" he whispered. Ghost did not answer save to press closer. In the starry September of Old Town, stained glass dragons glimmered above sun-dappled marble. Archmaester Ibroz lectured over a long oak table strewn with scrolls. "Authentic," he declared at last, tapping the marriage record with a bony finger. "Ink composition matches batches used 34 years past. The seal is genuine. The hand is Maynard's." Maesters exchanged looks. One side, then the line of succession. Ibroz exhaled. "Is a quagmire that may drown us all. If Aegon Targaryen lives, the realm must choose between a dragon queen and a dragon king, or tear itself apart deciding." Quills scratched, wax dripped, and somewhere far below, novices lit hundreds of candles for the long night to come. Cersei watched the chaos bloom like wildfire. On the narrow sea, merchant ships debated which banner to hoist. In White Harbor, Lord Manderly fortified docks against dragons or krakens, whichever came first. In Dorne, Princess Aerion weighed alliance with the Northborn Targaryen against vengeance for Elaya's children. Everywhere ravens flew, armies marched, doubts festered. Yet within Cersei's private chambers, victory felt curiously hollow. She gazed into a mirror framed in beaten gold, seeing lines deeper than before, green eyes rimmed by sleepless nights. "Let them fight over his parentage," she whispered. "I will sit the throne while they drown in their own blood." Her fingers closed around a goblet of arbor red. Behind her, the great lion of House Lannister was carved upon the wall, its jaws agape. She drank, and the wine tasted of triumph, and something far more bitter. In the frosted courtyards of Winterfell, horns sounded. Riders approached beneath banners, the dire wolf of the north and, beside it, a new flag unfurled by Jon's command, a white field bearing a dire wolf intertwined with a three-headed dragon argent on crimson. Some cheered the sight, others muttered of treachery. Jon greeted the riders at the gate. Men sworn to House Reed, bringing Howland's sworn affidavit, sealed and signed. That night, Jon read aloud the words of the crannogman who had saved Ned Stark on the tower's bloodied steps. As he spoke, Sansa watched the faces of the gathered lords change like winter skies, suspicion giving way to awe, fear to grudging respect. When Jon finished, he lowered the parchment, voice steady as the wall. "This is truth. What we do with it is choice." A hush fell, broken by the crackle of logs. Lady Dustin spoke first. "A dragon may yet be a wolf," she said, surprising all. "What matters is the price he demands for our loyalty." Jon met her gaze. "I demand nothing. I ask for unity to fight the dead, and then the living." He looked around. "Help me keep the realm safe from both." One by one they voiced accord, some with cheers, others with solemn nods, until only the echoes remained. Sansa exhaled softly, a hint of relief behind the steel in her eyes. Arya offered Jon a rare smile, Bran closed his eyes, seeing perhaps paths yet unwalked. In his solar, Jon removed the wolf's head cloak clasp and set it upon the table. He traced its contours, then turned to a fresh sheet of parchment. The quill hovered, ink gathering like black blood. He wrote, Daenerys. Dawn gloomed over the sea as black sails cut through mist toward Dragonstone. On deck, Theon Greyjoy scanned the shore, heart pounding with hope and dread. He bore Jon's letter to the Dragon Queen, and within it, a pledge that the North would stand beside her if she stood with the North. The revelation of Jon's birth had shaken Theon more than he cared to admit. All his life he had held names and blood in greater reverence than oaths, until both failed him. Now he served a king who cared less for titles than for men's lives. Perhaps that was worth saving. On the cliffs above, Daenerys awaited, Drogon looming behind her like a living mountain. The wind whipped her hair about her shoulders, silver strands catching first light. As Theon knelt, holding out the parchment, Daenerys studied his face, seeing the marks of iron price and hard redemption. She broke the seal and read. Her eyes widened, not in shock but in recognition. Jon's words were frank, unflinching, a mirror to her own hunger for justice. She turned to Tyrion. Prepare the fleet. We sail north. Tyrion blinked. In winter seas? If the realm must know who we are, she said, we will let the North judge us together. Drogon roared, a sound that rolled across waves like thunder heralding the storm. Far to the east, in the ruins of Valyria, a red priestess watched black dragons circle volcanic vents. Lawloress flames painted her eyes with visions. A wolf crowned in fire, a lion drowned in crimson water, a stag shackled by golden chains. She murmured a prophecy half remembered, half revised. When the wolf dragon rises, the night shall tremble. Ash drifted like snow, settling on her palms as she prayed. Atop the wall, Jon's mind churned like the winds whipping past Eastwatch. He had flown there on Rhaegal, no longer just a dragon but, in some unspoken bond, his father's legacy living flesh. The flight left his bones ringing with cold and wonder. Looking east, he thought of Daenerys sailing through breakers and gales to meet him. Looking south, he imagined Cersei sharpening lies sharper than Valyrian steel. Looking north, he saw only white emptiness and knew the truest threat still marched hidden within. He turned back toward Winterfell. Candles twinkled in arrow-slit windows. Smoke curled from mead hall chimneys. Somewhere below, Sansa parceled grain. Arya drilled with sparring partners. Bran read the movements of ravens overhead. And within those walls, the North weighed something older than dragons, family, and something younger, hope. Jon mounted Rhaegal, gripping the cold spikes along the dragon's neck. The beast's lungs expanded, wind rushing over emerald scales. When they launched into the dawn sky, Ghost howled below, a note of mourning and promise. Rhaegal banked south, wings cleaving frigid air. Snowflakes hissed against scaled hide, melting at the touch of living flame. High above the world scars, Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, rode the storm, bearing two names, one purpose, and a heart split between ice and fire. Winter screamed around them, fierce and endless, but within his chest burned a quiet certainty that some truths, once spoken aloud, could never be caged again. The world would bend or break upon that certainty. And as clouds closed behind him, Jon did not look back, for the future had already begun its long, unyielding march. The first snow of mid-autumn drifted across the high fields of the Gift, frosting the tufts of brown grass that clung to the ruin of the last hearth. Jon guided Rhaegal into a circling descent, the green dragon's vast wings pushing eddies of white powder through the broken courtyard. The castle below was a silent skeleton, charred beams jutting like black ribs, ash pooling in doorways where great-grandsons of Umber once drank mead and sang bawdy songs. Ghost bounded ahead as Jon dismounted, his white coat ghostlier beneath the flakes. The air tasted of soot and stale death, the memory of the Night King's earlier passage still palpable even after a season of uneasy peace. Davos Seaworth emerged from a half-collapsed stable, snow in his grizzled beard, cloak drawn tight. Never thought I'd see a dragon land on Umber stones, he said, voice low, respectful. Place smells cursed enough without wings above it. Jon clasped his shoulder. The curse comes from farther north, and we've no time to mourn its shadows. He studied the horizon. Rhaegal's golden eyes mirrored his vigil. Daenerys sails even now. We need clear ground for her landing. Davos glanced at the dragon. Aye, but storms brew hard in autumn seas, Your Grace. The title still sounded strange between them, tumbling after revelations that scattered every certainty Davos once held. The North whispers about oaths. Some say this new blood makes you theirs no longer. Jon knelt, scooping a handful of snow, watching it melt against his glove. Blood alone never granted a man loyalty. I'll remind them with deeds. They toured the wreck, mindful of charred floorboards and frozen puddles. Every scorched wall spoke of last winter's fight, of Umber children turned whites, of Tormund Giant's bane dragging survivors south under a bleeding dawn. Jon felt memories pressing, yet today's mission was different. They would build beacon fires atop the tallest towers, guide Daenerys' fleet to nearby Eastwatch, then ride together to Winterfell. Dragons might melt ice, but lords demanded mortal proofs before bending knee. Night arrived with thin moonlight, the sky scraped by purple clouds. Davos and a handful of black brothers set torches around the courtyard, feeding them with pitch and resin until flames roared high enough to make Rhaegal's scales glitter gold-green. Jon climbed the tower stair alone, boots echoing on stone slick with rime. At the parapet, he unrolled a message sealed by Howland Reed's signet. Confirmation of the marriage, the truth of his birth, and a note in a slanted hand. Honor never choked me so much as silence. Speak loudly or lose all. Jon folded the parchment, tucking it into his cloak. Wind keened through arrow slits. Somewhere below, Ghost loosed a forlorn howl. Jon stared north, where the wall's distant line merged with black sky. Even with Rhaegal at his back, he felt as if he gazed into an abyss that might swallow friend and foe alike. When finally he turned away, he carried a private vow that whatever crown history thrust upon his brow, he would not wear it while winter's dead remained abroad. Daenerys Targaryen stood at the Stormdancer's prow as froth slashed the hull. Dragonstone's towers had vanished in the mist hours ago. Only gray swells and whitecaps stretched to every horizon. Salt stung her cheeks, and the wind unraveled her silver braid across dark leather armor. To starboard, two other transports pitched wildly, lanterns swinging like drunken stars. Below decks, Unsullied steadied themselves with silent discipline, while Dothraki muttered prayers to horse gods and used to water's ceaseless sway. A crack of thunder rolled. Tyrion Lannister braced beside her, one hand gloved around the railing. You should rest. 6 days in the storm and the men watch you standing sleepless. Morale may turn to worry. Daenerys kept her gaze on the horizon. They need to see their queen unbroken. She paused, voice lowering. Tyrion, tell me truly, when we reach Winterfell, will the North despise me for my blood, or hail me because I command dragons? Both, Tyrion replied without hesitation. They are Northerners. They distrust Southerners who ride south of the neck, let alone one who breathes fire upon arrival. But they respect strength. If you arrive beside Jon, not above him, they might accept a partnership. He frowned. Cersei's letter named him rightful heir. Knights who once cheered your banners now contemplate his. Daenerys' eyes were hard amethysts. Yet Jon never asked for crowns. We forged alliance as equals. Equals until parchment forged by dead priests proclaims him superior, Tyrion said gently. Pride bends slower than iron. From the mainmast, the lookouts shout pierced wind. Lights to the north, tower flames. Daenerys leaned into the gale. Faint orange glimmered on the horizon. A beacon, bright and constant against the dark. Her breath quickened. Jon, she whispered, prepare the signal lanterns. We steer for that fire. Below, sailors scrambled. Rigging creaked, and the fleet altered course. Tyrion watched her expression soften, hope tempered by resolve. When you meet, he advised, speak first of what you share, not what divides. She nodded, though her eyes burned with something older than counsel, forged in exile. The conviction that destiny would not be denied, only delayed. Far inland, within Winterfell's drafty solar, Sansa Stark studied ledgers by candlelight, quill tapping an anxious rhythm. Grain stores dwindled despite rationing. The coming winter promised length and severity. Arya perched on the windowsill sharpening needle, steel rasping softly as she listened. Bran sat near the hearth, gaze distant. 2,000 bushels short, Sansa murmured. We must send wagons to White Harbor while roads remain passable. Arya slid the sword into its sheath. And if Cersei's Sellswords land at White Harbor first? Lord Manderley wrote of suspicious ships near the Bight. Sansa sighed. Then we fortify, but without food, fortifications crumble. I've requested trading rights with the Braavosi, offering northern furs. Bran's voice, quiet but certain, cut through accounts. Ships will reach White Harbor, but foes come from within sooner than from sea. Sansa frowned. Prophecy again? Give me plain counsel, Bran. He blinked, gears of time clicking behind pale irises. Knives in shadows, faces not their own. One seeks a queen, another a wolf, a third a dragon's rider. He turned toward Arya. You know their art better than most. Arya's fingers tightened around Needle's hilt. Faceless. Bran nodded once. Sansa looked from sibling to sibling, heart thudding. Cersei's influence reaches farther than Raven's. Arya slid off the sill. Let them come. Winterfell's corridors know me better than any stranger. Outside, the courtyard bustled with blacksmiths forging dragonglass spearheads. Gendry's hammer rang on anvil, sparks flying. Tormund instructed young spearmen, his booming laughter carrying above snow-clad ramparts. Sansa watched, gratitude and unease entwined. Jon's absence weighed heavier each dawn, and lordly patience thinned like ice on a midday pond. Rumors blossomed, talks of Stark honor compromised by dragon blood, whispers that Jon might bend knee to Daenerys not as ally but as vassal or husband. Sansa brushed quill across parchment harder than she meant, ink blotting the margin. Whatever path Jon chose, she would match moves with wisdom older than southern courts. The North remembered, yes, but Sansa learned and never forgot again. Deep beneath the Red Keep, Jaime Lannister lay awake on cold straw, wrists chafed raw by iron. Moonlight seeped through a high grate, dust swirling in its sliver of silver. Bronn stood outside the bars, torch in hand, face shadowed by smirk. Time to leave, pretty boy. Jaime sat up slowly. Cersei's given you keys to mock me? Cersei's busy stewing in her own wine, Bronn said, jiggling keys. And Qyburn pays poor. Your friends in the Reach pay better. I'm here for coin, not loyalty. The lock clicked. Jaime rose, fetters clanging. His gold-forged hand felt heavier than ever. Why would she trust you near me? Because she thinks I'm here to cut your throat. Bronn winked. Truth is, I'm here to guide you out a postern gate. There's a fast horse and a faster galley waiting. You still owe me a castle, remember? Jaime's lips twisted. Gratitude tasted like blood. Winterfell stands where the fight matters. And where dragons nest, Bronn replied, shrugging. Castle or ashes, either way, debts paid. They crept through torchless corridors, ghosts of cobwebs drafting behind. Down sewage-stinking tunnels, past half-collapsed cellars, they reached a hidden pier under the city wall. Moonlit tide lapped stone. A lean skiff bobbed, sail furled. Jaime inhaled free air and felt it cut his lungs sharp as steel. Before stepping in, he glanced south toward the towering Sept ruins. Black bone silhouettes, silent reminder of Cersei's fires. Regret coiled but did not root him. Duty pulled north. He owed Jon Snow truth, owed living men his sword. And perhaps, he thought with a pang, owed someone else dignity in death. Brienne's steady blue eyes flickered in memory, filled with faith he had once feared to meet. Bronn nudged him. Dream of maidens later. Tide turns. The skiff slipped into black water, sails catching breeze toward the northern stars. Behind Jaime, King's Landing glimmered like a jeweled carcass under moonlight. Beautiful, corrupt, indifferent. At Eastwatch, the sea gate creaked open for the storm dancers' arrival. Lanterns shone from parapets, revealing unsullied ranks disgorging in disciplined columns, shields bearing the snarling three-headed dragon. Regal circled overhead before alighting on mangled ice parapets, tail curling through white dust. Jon stepped forward as Daenerys disembarked. Wind snarled at her cloak. Snow sparkled in her hair. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath, as if old gods and new paused arguments to witness. Davos bowed low, eyeing the queen with sailor's pragmatism. Behind Jon, Tormund grinned, eyes glinting at the sight of a dragon's heat shimmering the air. Jon moved first, offering a gloved hand. "You've braved rough seas." Daenerys studied his face, seeking answers the realm demanded. She grasped his hand. "No rougher than rumors." Her voice softened. "It gladdens me to see you safe." They stood thus while men and dragons murmured. Regal chuffed, dipping his head toward Drogon, who soared in circles above the fleet. Snow hissed on scaleless wings. Daenerys's eyes widened, noticing Regal's calm acceptance of Jon's proximity. Dragons rarely tolerated strangers near kin. If proof of lineage lay anywhere, this silent deference shouted it. Tyrion approached, hood drawn. "Shall we discuss politics somewhere warmer than frozen seawalls?" Jon inclined his head, leading them into the ruined war room, once manned by the Night's Watch. Fires crackled, maps of the North waited tables. Daenerys removed her gloves, warming fingers at flame. Jon spoke plainly. "The wall holds, but whites roam beyond the shivering sea. Scouts report new hives gathering near the Bay of Seals. We must unite our armies now." Daenerys nodded, but Tyrion cleared his throat. "Before armies march, lineages must be addressed. Cersei's parchment spreads faster than plague. Some lords whisper your claim eclipses hers." Jon's brow furrowed. "A claim I never sought." "Intent matters less than perception," Tyrion said. "The North might follow you anywhere, yet the Reach, the Stormlands, they now see two Targaryens. Clarify roles, or watch alliances fracture." Daenerys's gaze held Jon's. "I came to fight the dead, to break the wheel. Yet a wheel has many spokes. If prophecy names two heads of the dragon, perhaps we share fire." Jon shifted, shadows flickering across his face. "Thrones have cost us everything. I will serve where needed, but not at the realm's expense." Silence stretched, heavy with beginnings. Outside, wind howled like wolves. In the city of Pentos, Illyrio Mopatis entertained ambassadors from Bravos in his perfumed manse. They reclined on silky cushions while slaves poured wine sweet as honey. Yet the conversation hummed with steel. Illyrio unrolled two letters, one bearing the crowned lion of Cersei, promising trade rights, another sealed with a red wax direwolf dragon sigil, promising safer shipping lanes and debts repaid in northern timber. The fat magister smiled behind oiled beard. "War," he mused, "fattens purses if one chooses the right belly to feed first." Ships would sail by week's end, carrying crossbows destined for Golden Company hands, and, in secret holds, barrels of wildfire bound for any buyer bold enough to light the world anew. Arya Stark stalked Winterfell's moonlit corridors, soft boots silent on worn flagstones. She had spent 3 days unseen among small folk, wearing the kindly face of a flax-haired serving girl from Deepwood Motte. She listened to grooms mutter, washerwomen gossip, foreign sellswords complain. On the 4th night she found her quarry, a stooped scribe near the rookery, his hands ink-stained but too deft for clumsy maester work. He hovered by ravens' cages, slipping tiny scrolls beneath Black Feather's wings. Arya's dagger found his throat before he could gasp. She pressed him against stone, whispering, "Who taught you the many-faced god's tongue?" Blood frothed as he choked. "Girl with wolf eyes," he hissed, surprised. Arya twisted steel, ending talk. She dragged the body into shadows, retrieving the parchment. It bore Cersei's cipher, instructing the assassin to silence the crippled seer. "Bran." Arya's veins iced. She melted into gloom, plotting next steps. If one faceless came, more would follow. She would be ready. Many faces, one purpose: protect her pack. Beyond the shivering forest, undead ravens flocked under aurora-lit sky. Blue light flickered in empty sockets. At their center, the horned walker, known as the Frost Harbinger, raised a broken war horn once belonging to House Karstark, now wound with ice. The note it blew froze vapor mid-air. Across icy plains, white mammoths stirred, polar bears snarled with icicle fangs, and a new horde rallied. Though the Night King lay in shattered shards, fragments of his will persisted in these lieutenants. Their march resumed, slower but unrelenting, like cracks spreading across an old glacier. Back at Eastwatch, Jon visited Daenerys in the Rookery Tower after midnight. Candlelight painted her face gold, hair silver as snowfall. She was reading Samwell's copied page of Maynard's marriage record, brows knit. "I did not plan to keep this from you," Jon said. She set the parchment down, fingers lingering on its edge. "It matters less who knew first and more what we do now. If your claim precedes mine, some will ask you to take the Iron Throne." Jon shook his head. "Cersei created this rift. I won't widen it." He moved closer, voice low. "You said once that you wanted to break the wheel, make a world built on justice, not birth. Let's do it together." Her eyes softened. "But will your North accept a Southern queen? Not unless their king does." He chuckled without mirth. "And their king still struggles with being a dragon prince." Daenerys reached for his hand, warmth surprising amidst tower chill. "You're both, ice and fire." She drew in a breath. "As am I in my way." Perhaps prophecy spoke of balance, not hierarchy. Jon studied her, heart beating like war drums. Outside, Rhaegal settled against the tower base, tail coiling protectively. Drogon perched on a crumbled ballista platform, wings half spread against wind. The dragon's closeness felt like silent oath. In that moment, between candles and snow, a cautious bond ignited. Not yet love, but recognition of shared burdens. They parted late, each carrying uneasy hope. Down stone steps Jon passed Missandei, who bowed gently. He wondered if tomorrow's sun would shine brighter for these tentative accords or glare harshly upon fresh fault lines. Meanwhile, at Sea Dragon Point, Golden Company ships dropped anchor. Harry Strickland strode upon rocky shore, boots crunching frost-rimmed sand. Behind him marched 10,000 swords, elephants left behind due to Euron's shattered promise. Ravens from Cersei ordered immediate overland march to Moat Cailin, there to sever north from south. Strickland frowned. Years campaigning across Essos taught him caution about bog roads and northern autumn storms. But debt bound him. Gold delivered from Lannister treasuries glinted at his waist. In the Treeline, wildling scouts watched. One slipped away, bounding through brush toward hidden ravens destined for Winterfell. War pressed closer with each heartbeat, and the wildwood shivered. Edison Tollett stepped onto Eastwatch's icy parapet at dawn, rubbing eyes gritty with sleepless nights. He stared south, squinting at a black shape gliding low over water. A skiff, sail patched, bearing 2 figures. When the craft docked, Ed recognized Jaime Lannister's golden head and the Sellsword bronze smirk. Ed muttered, "Must be the season for lions seeking wolves." He sent word to Jon. Jaime, weary yet resolute, dismounted on the wooden quay to meet Davos. "I come as ally," he said before greetings. "Cersei's game threatens every soul alive. She hired assassins, raised Sellswords, brewed wildfire enough to torch the north. I would fight for the living." Davos crossed arms. "Your hands built much of her terror." "A Lannister always pays his debts," Jaime replied, tapping gold prosthetic. "Consider this my payment." He extended a sealed document, Cersei's private orders to Qyburn detailing the faceless contracts and wildfire caches. Davos read quickly, eyes widening. He gestured toward the courtyard. "Best speak with the king, whatever we call him now." Jaime's gaze rose to Rhaegal perched on failing ramparts. Aegon Targaryen on a dragon. Never thought to see that. Neither did he. Davos muttered, leading the way through splintered halls where Night's Watch brothers eyed the newcomers with suspicion sharper than drawn swords. Within the war room, Jaime found Jon, Daenerys, Tyrion, and Grey Worm studying fresh reports. The presence of the Queen and her hand tightened his throat. Ash! He bowed stiffly, gold hand catching torchlight. Tyrion's face was stone. Anger, sadness, kinship, each vying. Jaime offered the scroll. Our sister plots to burn Winterfell's crypts with wildfire shells. She believes ancient bones mean more to Northerners than living blood. She also sent killers after the boy who sees past and present. His eyes flicked to Daenerys. And after you, Tyrion exhaled. Cersei never changes. Jaime met Jon's gaze. I broke vows before. I would keep one now. Let me ride south with a small force. Sabotage the wildfire stockpiles before she can move them. Jon considered. You would risk returning to her nets? A knight's life is risk. My sins are many. Let my sword at least spare innocence. Daenerys studied him. You killed my father under guise of loyalty. Why trust does not come easily? Because I killed him to save the city from burning. Jaime answered quietly. I'd do it again. I'll do it now, against my sister. Silence thickened. He smiled. In that shared resolve, Tyrion glimpsed both strength and peril. Together they burnt bright as wildfire, capable of forging peace or igniting folly. Southward they pressed, weeks folding into a relentless rhythm of icy dawn departures and bone-tired dusk encampments. Snow dwindled as they crossed the neck. Russet marshlands stretched, cranes taking flight at dragon shadows. The crannogmen emerged from misted hummocks, slender spears in hand, green seer talismans dangling from belts. Howland Reed himself greeted Jon at Greywater Watch's hidden landing, weathered face softening beneath a reed-framed helm. He knelt awkwardly. My prince, he began, but Jon raised him. Don't, Jon whispered, voice thick. You kept my secret all my life. Reed's eyes glimmered. Your mother's eyes shone just so when she spoke your name. He pressed an oiled leather bundle into Jon's hands, a length of maiden's winter rose petals preserved in resin around Lyanna's wedding braid. Jon's throat constricted. He tucked the relic safe inside cloak lining, near heart. Howland then faced Daenerys, giving stiff bows. Queen of Dragons, my family owes debt to Targaryens 4 generations past. We shelter your advance. Crannog boats will smuggle scouts through every channel. He nodded to Bran beside the weirwood-carved crest, acknowledging the last green seer with respectful awe. That night, Crannog feasts of eel pie and fish stew surprised the armies, flavors spiced with unknown herbs. Tormund devoured 6 bowls before howling northern songs across reed-lit barges. Dothraki attempted harmonies, producing guttural choruses that startled herons. Laughter wove fragile peace among disparate hosts. But even amid mirth, Arya slipped into shadow, wearing the kindly face of a nameless Crannog boy. From vantage among tall cattails, she watched small boats ferry cloaked figures straying from camp. She followed silent as dragonfly, overhearing Lysine accents trading jade coins to bolt quiver cells words. Assassins again. She memorized their route, then vanished into night to intercept. When 3 masked killers scaled Davos's skiff with poison-tipped quarrels, Arya rose from bilge like a specter, blade flickering. One died to swift throat cut. Second she disarmed, snapped neck with brutal twist. Third leapt overboard but met grey water leeches thick as serpents. His screams bubbled then ceased. Dragging corpses to reed beds, Arya murmured to many-faced god. Debt settled. My coin returns to Winterfell. She left faces for waters to claim. 3 days later they reached the ruins of the twins. Walder Frey's grandsons had retaken the northern keep after Arya's vengeance years prior, but now lay slain near gates, throats cut by Sellsword blades. Franklin Flower's Golden Company rearguard held the bridges, but before they could torch planks to hinder the dragon host, Regal swooped low, frost-green flames severing ropes. Unsullied stormed across half-burning spans. Flowers attempted parley, but Grey Worm speared him where he stood, then offered safe surrender to remaining men if they laid arms. 200 did, shackled and marched rearwards. Another 300 fled east. Dothraki riders pursued, leaving only churned mud and severed banners. The army rested in Frey courtyards where banners once dripped stark blood. Northmen spat upon flagstones, remembering the Red Wedding. Sansa walked galleries once filled with jeering phrase. Memories closed around her throat like band of iron, but she squared shoulders, instructing maesters to cleanse halls for wounded quarters. She found Arya in great rooms surveying caved roof where crows nested. Sisters shared silent moment. Sansa's hand on Arya's arm, gratitude unspoken yet powerful. Together they left that cursed place forever changed. Far to the south, the warm air of King's Landing smelled of blooming orange trees and tanneries baking under cloudless sky. But tension slithered through alleys like starving cats. Small folk spoke of dragons marching, dead men fallen, wheat shipments burned. Cersei watched from Tower of the Hand balcony while Qyburn's ravens darted to and fro, scrolls tied to dust-coated legs. She sipped wine, gold gown trimmed in black. Her eyes, once bright jade, were veined with sleepless red. "Where is Euron?" she snapped. Qyburn bowed. "Victorious at sea, your grace." The Iron Fleet intercepted a Tyrell-backed convoy near the Arbor. But his ships remain weeks away should we summon. Cersei ground teeth. "Summon anyway. I would sooner drown in wildfire than kneel to a bastard wolf." She paced, skirts swishing. Jaime has not returned. Either he fails in treachery or weds ice and fire. She hurled goblet at hearth, crimson pooling like spilled blood. Qyburn cleared throat. "Our scorpions line every wall. The new barrels of wildfire. Double them," she hissed. "Ready caches beneath Flea Bottom, Dragon Pit, and September ruins. If Dragonfire lights even one fuse, I want half the city between us and them in ashes. Make them fear what conquering me costs." Qyburn bowed deeper, though flicker of concern crossed pale features. He had studied madness long. He recognized its spiral. As dusk fell, black-cloaked men dragged barrels into hidden tunnels. Down there, the city's bones creaked with old secrets. Still smoldering embers from Baelor Blast, rat-gnawed skeletons of Targaryen loyalists, tunnels Maegor once flooded with molten metal. Now Cersei stocked those catacombs with hellfire. Jaime Lannister limped toward Capital's outer villages under cloaks stained by weeks of travel. His escape from Euron's coastal patrol nearly cost him life. Bronn's gold bought passage on a smuggler cog that sailed through Midnight Shoal, slipping inside Rivergate before dawn. But Bronn parted ways in the Stormlands for safer coin, leaving Jaime to finish mission alone. He reached a mill house where he had arranged covert meet with Varys's little birds, now led by a shaven-headed girl called Ember. She told him scorpions dotted gatehouses, wildfire caches placed under bread markets and granaries. She gifted him a pouch of star-shaped iron charges capable of shattering barrel casings if placed near vents. "Light fuse, run," she advised with grin as feral as a gutter cat. Jaime accepted, slipping devices into saddlebag. That evening he crouched by sewer grate outside Lion Gate. Remembering day he fled Red Keep to join Brienne on road to Riverrun. Back then he still believed love could salvage his soul. Now he clutched iron bombs, vowing to save city from that same love's ruin. At Moon's height, he slithered through rank tunnels, guided by Ember's chalk marks. Rats scurried over boots. Low rumble above marked carriages crossing cobbles. The air tasted of bile and sulfur wildfire barrels nearby. Jaime set charges at beam junctions, timed fuse sticks dipped in naphtha wax. Each placement quickened pulse. He imagined Cersei's face twisting when her fire turned impotent. But mingled with grief came fierce resolve. He emerged hours later in a tangle of reeds along Blackwater Rush, just as dawn lightened river mists. Raven waited on rock, dark eye glinting. Jaime tied coated strip to its leg, released it northward. Watching wings fade, he whispered, "Fly, brother, fly," then turned toward secret stable where stolen horse awaited for ride to Allied camp at Sow's Horn. The Raven arrived at Harrenhal where Jon's outriders camped to rest horses. Davos read Jaime's scrawl under flickering torch. Charges set, fuse cords ready, but scorpions remain threat atop Mudgate and Hill of Rainies. He brought scroll to Jon, who nodded grimly. He still serves. Tyrion traced lines on map. If we attack at dawn 2 days hence, Euron's fleet still at sea. Strike gates with unsullied spear columns, Dothraki sweeping flea-bottom alleys to cut torchbearers. He looked up. We must neutralize scorpions quickly. Dragons can strafe, but after bolt lodged in Drogon. I will lead Regal, Jon interrupted. His armor thickens each molt. He can bear brunt. Daenerys frowned but said nothing, trusting but fearful. Tyrion continued, Bran's warg ravens can spot scorpion nests. Relay to archers. Bran, silent by hearth, nodded. I will see through 1,000 eyes. Ravens perched upon windowsill as if understanding. The council set final plan. Dawn after next, approach under storm cloud conjured by Cranach smoke pots to dim dragon silhouettes. Unsullied scale walls near Rivergate, open portcullis for Northman wave. Meanwhile, Arya and Gendry infiltrate Red Keep via forgotten catacomb vent described in Maegor's treatises. Arya to disable wildfire lighters, Gendry to unhinge drawbridge gears. Sansa would oversee war camp at Hollow Hill, ensuring wounded evac routes. She accepted, though heart clenched. Each passing mile south clawed away snow wall of security she'd finally known. Yet she met Jon's eyes and said, I survived lions before. I'll guard our pack. Hours before dawn, rain swept Blackwater Plain, softening ground into treacherous muck. Soldiers daubed faces with ash to dull sheen of sweat. Tyrion walked ranks, recalling a lifetime earlier when he defended same city against Stannis, only now reversed. If I die today, he muttered to Podrick trailing him. I hope it's less embarrassingly than last time. Pod smiled, though eyes focused beyond torchlight. You'll live, my lord. At river mouth, Cranach skiffs coated in mud paddled silent, ferrying groups of unsullied to base of bluff below Mudgate. Grey Worm crouched in prow, hand on dagger hilt. Above them, scorpion silhouette rose like skeletal insect against lightning flash. Rain pattered wood, drumbeat of anticipation. On ridge, Dothraki poised, Aurochs reflecting occasional sparks. They stamped nervously, horses sensing dragons overhead lurking beyond Cloudbank. Jorah Mormont, now commander of Queen's Guard, led them, resurrected after ghost of his father's honor reclaimed under Daenerys' banner. Suddenly Bran's voice crackled through Raven perched on Jon's pommel. Scorpion units shifting toward rookeries. Wind favors south. Strike now. Daenerys, astride Drogon, echoed call. She and Jon heeled dragons skyward, bursting through roiling storm cloud like living comets. On city wall, torchbearers cried alarm, cranks turning, scorpion limbs swiveling upward. But unsullied archers already released volleys, flaming arrows piercing torsion ropes, setting them smoldering. Regal angled, exhaled sheet of frosted emerald flame that glazed rampart stones with molten glass, searing crews. At Mudgate, Grey Worm launched grappling hooks. Scale ladders rose, silent. He bounded up, spear twirling in lethal arcs. Bolts whistled overhead but glanced off his shield. He leapt into parapet, skewering first defender through throat. Unsullied poured after, formation blossoming outward. Portcullis chains rattled. Huge gears groaned. Within minutes, gate yawned. Across field, Dothraki thundered toward Lion Gate, hooting war cries that rolled like summer storm. Atop rampart, Lannister archers loosed but many bolts flew wide in deluge. Dragon silhouettes overhead shattered morale. Some broke and ran before blades reached them. Inside city, chaos ignited. Flea-bottom crowds woke to roar of hoofbeats and rattle of scabbards. Some fled toward Sept ruins, others cowered in doorways. Golden Company holdouts formed shield walls along narrow lanes, but Northmen surged, long swords hacking through half-hearted defense. Swords rang like iron bells above screams. Arya and Gendry slipped beneath Red Keep foundation via smuggler great long and used. Torch smoke choked tunnels. Bricks sweated oily residue of wildfire. Arya's face bore features of a freckled stable boy she'd killed outside Rhaenys Hill. Anonymity. They navigated Labyrinth by emberlight. Rats skittered over boots, then fell twitching, felled by poison fumes seeping from barrel cracks. Another sign of decaying caches. Finally, they reached Central Junction, where dozen barrels lay stacked beneath granary floor. Fuses coiled like vipers. Gendry produced flask of river water, doused fuse rope, careful not to spill onto barrels. Arya placed obsidian knife between teeth, ascended rotting ladder to subfloor. Above, she heard frantic footsteps of Cersei's torch crew evaluating detonation schedule. She positioned self beneath trap hatch, waited. When footsteps aligned, she kicked hatch upward, blade flicking. Torch fell, extinguished in muck. Man gurgled, then stilled. Arya pulled him through opening, donned his cloak, slipped into granary corridor. She followed passage toward courtyard, where wildfire runners gathered for final orders. Meanwhile, Gendry unlatched iron valve feeding ventilation. Using hammer, he twisted pipe until metal squealed. He attached leather bellows rig built with Davos's help, aimed toward sewer channel. Slow pump drew volatile gases outside city walls by reverse draft. Sweat poured. Each squeak threatened spark that could end them, but he persevered until Gauge Needle, salvaged from Pyromancer scale, fell to safe zone. On rampart of Maegor's Holdfast, Cersei surveyed city ablaze. Not from wildfire as hoped, but from burning market stalls and Scorpion towers collapsing under Dragonfire. She gripped parapet stone until knuckles whitened. Qyburn approached. "Your Grace, Gate of the Gods has fallen. Our lines crumble. We must consider retreat within Red Keep." Cersei spun, eyes blazing. "Retreat? My father never retreated. Your father never faced two dragons and an army joined by North, Vale, and Dothraki," Qyburn rasped. She slapped him, rings cutting skin. "Activate final cache under Dragon Pit. When beasts perch there, light fuse. Let bones of Balerion witness final pyre." Qyburn bowed past bleeding lip. He scurried downstairs. Cersei turned to Ser Gregor Clegane, towering sentinel. "No mercy," she whispered. "Slaughter streets until knees bend." But thunder shook battlements. Drogon swooped, scorching Tower of the Hand to molten ruin. Stones exploded, raining chunks. Cersei staggered, hair whipping. She glimpsed Daenerys astride dragon, lance of flame illuminating Queen's silhouette, a living goddess carved of wrath. Fear coiled, but hatred blazed hotter. She retreated inside holdfast corridors lit by dim sconces. There, Euron Greyjoy awaited, armor dripping sea spray, gaze wild. "Your scorpions fail," he snarled, grabbing her wrist. "Fleet battles dragons at bay. Bolt missed second beast, but we lost half ships." He pulled her close. "We've lost." Cersei yanked away. "We are not defeated until I am ashes." In her chamber, she retrieved small crystal phial of deep violet liquid, Dornish widow's blood, potent poison. She tucked it into bodice. If world meant to rob her throne, she would choose the hour and manner of her fall. Out in city, Jon dismounted inside square near Street of Sisters, where civilians huddled around collapsed cart. He ordered knights to guard them. Cries of King Aegon rang. He flinched but pressed on. He reached Scorpion Tower, perched above Gate of the Gods. Rhaegal's earlier frostfire had cooled enough. He climbed charred steps, found lever still functional. He spun it, pivoting hulking weapon downward to crack base struts. Tower toppled into moat, burying last operational Scorpion. Below, Grey Worm signaled Unsullied to occupy ramparts. Northmen hoisted Direwolf Dragon banner above River Gate. Bells of Great September, still rubble, lay silent, but city's heartbeat shifted from panic to surrender. Dothraki wheeled through avenue of towers, Araks snatching jewelry from archway statues. But Mormont knights rained them, reminding of Queen's decree. Some bloodshed continued, war's chaos, yet widespread sack did not unfold. Tyrion rode with Podrick, urging crowds to shelter in Sept ruins out of Dragon Path. People obeyed, some remembering his defense years prior. Outside Dragon Pit, Drogon angled for landing on Cracked Dome. Bran's ravens warned. Wildfire barrels hidden under sand, fuse running. Daenerys guided Drogon away at last second. Flaming bolt of green erupted, missing tail by yards. Blast shattered skeleton of mare axes, sending bone shards whistling. Drogon roared, banked to high sky. Smoke curled neon emerald below. Daenerys pressed palm to Drogon's scales. Almost my son. She scanned keep for other traps. On street beneath, Arya sprinted, face painted in blood of last foe. She saw Qyburn emerge from alley, shadowed by mountain of armor. The mountain lumbered, red eyes behind helm. Arya slowed, realizing this titan blocked path to Red Keep entrance. She hissed between teeth. Though she'd slain giants, this creature was death forged in flesh. Yet she remembered needlework lessons, silent steps, swift strikes. As she weighed options, brick dust burst. Suddenly a tall figure clad in blue steel plate stepped from debris. Brienne of Tarth, sword hefted. Silver dog sigil of House Clegane pinned her cloak. Sandor had given it to her before leaving to rescue his brother from monstrous fate. He had fallen at Frosthorn but asked Brienne to deliver final blow if chance. Now she faced Gregor. "Stand aside, Ser Gregor," Brienne called, voice echoing harsh. The mountain turned, contemptuous rumble. Qyburn ordered kill, but Gregor backhanded him into wall, skull cracking like melon. Unleashed at last from Master's leash, battle erupted. Brienne swung Oathkeeper, golden blade flashing. Mountain's greatsword met, sparks searing rain-soaked air. Their clang resounded like smith's anvil. Arya skirted edges, eyes scanning for opening. She hoped Brienne would fell monstrosity, but Mountain's strength monstrous. He caught Brienne's shoulder with armor-shattering blow, sending her to knees. She parried Deathstrike, but cracks spidered across shield. Arya darted, leapt onto crumbled stair behind Mountain, climbed armor ridges, plunged dragonglass dagger at chink by neck. Weapon snapped on obsidian shard. Yet Mountain roared, swatting her and launching across yard. She rolled, ribs screaming. Brienne used moment, driving Oathkeeper through gap in breastplate, twisting with grunt. Gregor seized blade, yanked it deeper to trap her close. He grasped Brienne's helm, squeezing. Brienne screamed, visor bending. Arya hurled broken dagger stump, striking visor slit. Gregor jerked back. Brienne wrenched sword free, slashed again, severing arm at elbow. Black ichor spurted. She pivoted, cleaved helm in half, exposing pale, rotten visage. Mountain staggered. Brienne rammed pommel into skull, then drove blade downward through collarbone until tip burst from spine. Gregor sagged, final rumble dying. Arya exhaled, assisting Brienne upright. Brienne wiped gore from face. "Hound repaid," she whispered. Inside throne room's shattered hall, Cersei stood alone before Iron Throne, torches sputtering. Smoke seeped from shattered windows, battle clamor muted by thick walls. She swirled cloak, approached throne's barbed shadow. "They will never have you," she murmured. She uncorked Widow's blood vial, swirling dark liquid, but footsteps echoed. Jaime strode in, splattered cloak, golden hand glinting. Rainwater dripped from hair. Recognition flickered between them like lightning. "Back to me at last," Cersei breathed. Jaime shook head, sorrow pooling. "Your fire ends today, sister." She raised vial, smirk curling. "Ours ends together." She stepped toward him, intending shared drink of death, but arrow thudded into floor between them. Arya emerged from side corridor, now wearing face of red-haired handmaiden. She dropped guise, gray eyes cold. "Not today," she said. Cersei glared. "Little wolf, come for vengeance." Arya tilted head. "I came to keep realm from your flames." She tossed small bone whistle. Behind, Drogon's roar tremored walls. Jaime stepped forward. "Cersei, surrender. There is still life. Our child." His voice cracked. Memory of stillborn son buried beneath September of Baelor seared mind. He swallowed. "There can be mercy." Cersei laughed, sound brittle. "Mercy is for fools." She dashed vial at Arya, who ducked. Glass shattered, poison smoking. Immediately Cersei lunged for concealed dagger, but Arya was faster, drawing needle to tip at Queen's throat. Jaime intervened. "Arya, please." Arya's gaze never left Cersei. "She still has wildfire." Jaime nodded slowly. "I know." His voice steel. "I will end it." He extended gold hand. Cersei froze, unreadable swirl of fear and longing across face. Jaime spoke softly. "Remember when we were children playing lions and lions, swearing always together? I failed you when I let darkness consume us. Today I choose light." Cersei's eyes glazed with unshed tears. Her shoulders sagged. She allowed Jaime to take her wrist. Arya lowered blade fraction. For heartbeat, peace seemed possible. Then distant thunder shook pillars. Sound of wildfire barrel detonating at Dragon Pit aftershock. Cersei's head whipped toward window. She saw plume of green rising. Eyes widened, hope of carnage sparked anew. She yanked free, pivoted to flee. Arya anticipated. Dagger flashed, scoring shallow cut along Queen's cheek. Cersei stumbled, blood bead tracing jaw. Jaime stepped forward, despair etched. He drew short sword. "Don't." Cersei laughed, blood mixing with tears. "If I can't have throne, let ashes have it." She darted toward side exit, but Jaime blocked. She slashed with concealed dirk. He parried, blade ringing. They circled, echoes of childhood sparring warped by tragedy. Arya stood aside, conflicted. Her list once bore Cersei's name, but she sensed this belonged to lions alone. She retreated, sealing doors behind. Within throne room, storm broke. Lightning crash illuminating barbs of iron. Cersei fought like cornered cat, tear-streaked face twisted. Jaime parried, begging surrender. She spit venom, slashing his forearm. Gold hand deflected much, but blood trickled. Jaime gritted teeth, disarmed her with precise twist. Dirk skittered across marble. He pressed sword tip to her heart. Rain drummed broken windows. Cersei's gaze softened, memories flickering. Mother's lullaby, wine-sweet laughter, tower windows of Casterly rock breezes. She whispered, "Don't leave me alone." Jaime eyes brimmed. Never alone, only free. He slid sword gently, for a queen's mercy blow, quick through breast. Cersei gasped, eyes widening, lips tremoring. He caught her, lowering to floor. She clutched gold hand, blood blooming across bodice. "We were born together," she murmured, voice fading. "I go first." Jaime held her until breath ceased. He kissed brow, tears mingling with rain. "Goodbye, Cersei." He sat beside body long minutes, thunder echoing emptily. Outside, bells began to ring. Broken clappers hammered by small folk emerging, signaling surrender. Jon rode to Red Keep courtyard as unsullied raised banner of direwolf dragon atop balustrade. He dismounted, passing wounded stacked on litters. Davos approached, relief etched deep. City yields. Jon nodded, scanning smoke-wreathed skyline. "Where is Daenerys?" Davos pointed up. Drogon circled, wing dipping. Jon ascended cracked steps to throne room entrance. Arya awaited. "It's done," she said quietly. Jaime ended it. Within hall, Jon found Jaime kneeling by Queen's corpse. Sword lay across lap, and used. Jon hesitated. Jaime met his gaze with silent plea. Jon stepped forward, placed hand on Kingslayer's shoulder. "She was your sister," he murmured. Jaime nodded, eyes hollow. Daenerys entered behind, cloak smoldering at him. She surveyed scene. Iron Throne behind, Cersei dead. She approached slowly, her expression unreadable. Grief for innocence lost, relief at war's end, hunger yet unsated. She stood before throne, fingertips tracing cool metal. Jon watched, heart thudding. Daenerys closed eyes, then withdrew hand. She turned to Jon, voice calm. "This throne cost the realm rivers of blood. Let it cost no more." She raised dragon-forged spear, swung. Iron barbs clanged as throne fractured, toppling backward, splintering stone dais. Shock rippled. Tyrion, entering, gasped. Daenerys faced assembly. We will not be ruled by fear of blades. We forge a council of lords and commons. A king alone cannot bear world. A queen alone cannot heal it. Together we build will anew. Jon exhaled long, nodding. Bran's ravens fluttered overhead, landing on shattered throne shards. Bran wheeled forward, brought there by Sam and Podrick to stand witness. He spoke quiet. The song ends where it began, with choice. Choose different. Tyrion stepped between Jon and Daenerys. The realm must see symbol. He turned to Jaime, helping him rise. Jaime slipped gold hand from wrist, uncoupling cherished vanity. He placed it beside Cersei, final token. Then he faced Tyrion. The brothers embraced, grief and forgiveness woven tight. In following days, city streets rang with hammers patching aqueducts, pulling down scorpion frames. Unsullied patrolled to maintain order. Northmen distributed grain. Davos supervised dock repairs. Gendry collaborated with smiths forging plowshares from melted swords. Dothraki accepted tasks of clearing rubble, their horse lords amused by city folks' timid awe. At Dragonpit, healers tended drogons wound with resin salve. Regal perched on broken dome, singing guttural croon to brother. Children gathered daily, wide-eyed, leaving offerings of roasted goat and polished stones. A grand assembly convened in ruins of Dragonpit. Lords from Reach, Stormlands, Vale, Dorne arrived under truce banners. Sansa represented North, clad in grey wolf fur. Arya stood behind wearing dagger at hip. Yara Greyjoy sailed up Blackwater with flotilla. She greeted Theon brotherly hug, promising new age of Iron Islands freed from Euron's tyranny. His flagship seen ablaze beyond bay, dragons credited. Tyrion proposed charter. Council of 15, half chosen by lords, half by guilds and septons, chaired by King and Council Aegon Targaryen and Queen Daenerys Stormborn for life. Their heirs chosen by council, not birth alone. Heated debate ensued. Lord Grafton of Gulltown scoffed at common voice. Elaria Sand, freed from dungeons, supported, citing Dorne's traditions. Sansa requested guarantee of northern autonomy within realm. Self-governed lords yet allied for trade and defense. Jon agreed. Daenerys conceded. Document inked by Samwell, a charter of the Seven Realms, ratified with drummed approval, though dissent remained seeds for future strife. Evening following treaty, Jon stood on torchlit balcony overlooking Blackwater. City lights glittered, reflecting new hope. Daenerys joined, cloak fluttering. They watched artisans launching paper lanterns for lost loved ones. Orange lights drifted skyward, mingling with stars. 5 hours of war, she murmured, for chance of a century's peace. Jon took her hand. Peace isn't born in victory, but in what we do after. She rested head on his shoulder. Then let us start with mercy. Tomorrow we open granaries to feed those once loyal to Cersei. He nodded, pressing forehead to hers. And rebuild houses of healing for wounded on both sides. Their breath mingled warm in night breeze. Far above, Drogon and Regal spiraled, their silhouettes crossing crescent moon. Below, faint strains of a northern harp drifted from tavern where Tyrion toasted Podrick's new ballad. Sansa, in Keep's library, drafted letters to houses confirming new rights. Arya boarded a narrow ship at night's hush, destination unknown. She chased whispers of uncharted west, dagger and compass in pack. Bran returned to Godswood Grove transplanted atop Aegon's Hill, roots set into new soil, guiding ravens to all corners. Jaime rode east with Brienne, sworn to hunt remaining wildfire caches beyond reach. Their path uncertain, but shoulders lighter. Sun rose on city not yet healed, but beating. Bells pealed anew, clear, not toll of surrender, but of dawn. Traders reopened stalls. Children chased pigeons near repaired fountain. Septon's blessed ground where September of Baelor would become garden of remembrance. On parapet above courtyard, Jon and Daenerys faced first light, armor gleaming. He turned to her, smile shy yet sure. Ready to rule? She squeezed his hand. Ready to serve. Together they descended stairs to meet council waiting. steps echoing not as weight of crowns but measure of intent. Flames of dragons tinted horizon gold and green. Winter's chill lingered, yet spring's breath crept through olive leaves. And in deep crypts of red keep, iron thrones shards lay scattered. Silent testament to ending of one age and birth of another, forged not by conquest alone but by choices of those who dared break and reshape the wheel.